Hello and welcome back. I'm Katie T from Katie T's Home, and I'm so happy you're here. And if you're new here and you like homemaking or home decor, seasonal, or even DIY and craft posts, then you should hit that subscribe button because I cover all of that content on my channel. But to just jump right into what we're going to talk about today, I am going to discuss different tips to prepare for motherhood. And some of you who might know me personally might be like, are you trying to hint at something? And to be clear, no, I am not. But I did have the privilege of interviewing two lovely ladies, and they shared with me their expert tips. And so today I'm going to share that interview with you. But yeah, without further ado, let's jump in. So before I get into the interview questions, I just want to mention a couple things real quickly. And the first thing is that children are a gift from God. And that should be no shock to you. If you've ever been in the presence of a child, I'm sure it's crystal clear, especially when they make such innocent and cute mistakes or statements or whatever, and you just really see their innocence. And part of what we know from the Bible of children being a blessing from God is what Matthew 18 teaches us. So I got my Blessed is She Bible. It's very lovely. I love it. But Matthew 18 says, "At the time, the disciples approached Jesus and said, 'Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?' He called a child over, placed in their midst, and said, 'Amen, I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, and whoever receives one child such as this in my name receives me.'" So again, Matthew 18, 1 through 5. And what it's talking about here is how the disciples were inquiring to Jesus, what will get us into heaven as far as rank and status goes. And that's when Jesus is like, no, status and rank mean nothing in the kingdom of heaven. But this child with this childlike trust for his parents, that's what will get you into heaven. And I think that's just so beautiful and something to think about. Here we are called as, we're all children of God to have that childlike trust for our Father, just like a child would be to his or her parents. So I think there's a lot to be learned about that. And I also think it's so cool how not only can you have the ability to be abundantly blessed by having a child, but in doing so, God gives us the opportunity to see things through his lens as a father who loves his children unconditionally. A mother or father who has a child kind of gets a glimpse of what that's like. And I just think that's so cool and special and unreplaceable, and is a gift that shouldn't be taken lightly, which is why I personally think that every want-to-be mother should be planning for pregnancy before they're even thinking about conceiving a child. And it sounds a little silly, but when you think about it, when you're in a relationship with someone, you're not going to have those really important marriage conversations when you're engaged. Likely you would have had those prior to be able to establish is this person the right one? Are they equally yoked? Because it's kind of too late if you have those important conversations and you're not aligned with one another. And I think the same thing, with preparing for motherhood, which is why I personally am doing my best to do what I can today while life is consistent and not overwhelming. And part of what that means is working on myself and being the best possible version that I can be, and to try to become that mother that I want for my children. And it kind of looks like, for example, if I picture myself to be the type of mother who reads bedtime stories to my children, but yet I don't even read regularly, how can I expect to be that kind of mother? So really just doing that deep dive and being like, okay, like I need to work on myself. I need to start reading more. Or like even like, okay, you know, I don't want my kids to be exposed to a ton of technology. But if I'm binge scrolling through Instagram reels, well then what kind of role model would I be? So doing those things to better myself, so then when the time comes and I hopefully one day am a mother, I can be that best possible version that I can possibly be because I did all of this work beforehand. And not only that, but this is the time to have those important discussions with your spouse. Like, okay, like how are we going to raise them on this issue, and how are we going to raise them on that issue? And it makes it easier if you know people who have children, people that are close to you, like a sibling or like a friend. And that way it kind of gives that role model for you. Like, okay, like I see how they are a parent in this category and I really like that. And I see how they are a parent in that category and I would do it a little differently. Not all information or examples are great, but just being exposed to it will help shed some light on what it's actually like. And I'm sure many of you, if you're like me, you'll watch one baby video on Instagram and the next thing you know, your feed is bombarded with a lot of videos on Instagram, which leads me to the first interview topic, which is the impact of social media on motherhood. And so this question was answered by Victoria. She is content creator for Time and Tenderness. She lives in the Southern Maryland area, and she is 30 years old, wife and mother of one. And she creates a lot of content on homemaking and has been doing so since 2018. So what Victoria said was, they say that becoming a mother is the most natural experience to go through. And although that may be true for some, it isn't for others. When I became a mother, there were many things that felt effortless, but there were also many things that I had no idea about. I also found that there's so much noise out there when it comes to being a mother. So many have opinions about what makes or doesn't make a good mother. Not to mention all the information, videos, and stories we have to weed through when it comes to infant and child care. When someone is trying to learn what to do as their new role as a parent, they might become paralyzed with confusion over all the abundance of information. My advice to any new mother is to mute all of that extra noise. You don't need strangers on the internet to tell you what to do. Limit who you're getting information from. Choose only a handful of older, wiser, trusted individuals to be your counselor. Ideally, your own mother can help be your guide, or even your grandmother, but sometimes that isn't always possible. In that case, a trusted female friend with experience with motherhood would be your best ally. Social media is a wonderful tool to learn new things. It's where many go for parenting advice, but social media can be a two-edged sword. On one hand, it can be helpful, but on the other hand, it can be harmful. For every good piece of advice, there are 3 bad pieces of advice out there. The best way to sort it all is to ask yourself the following questions. Is this in harmony with the basics of what I know? Does this sound too good to be true? Is it overly sensational? What do the comments or feedback on the post have to say? Asking yourself those questions while reading or learning on social media can help you sort out what is good advice from the bad. The more information you gather, the easier it is to make an informed decision when learning what to do in your motherhood responsibilities. And I think that's so well put. I mean, really, there is so much information out there and you have to weed through it all. And some of it might not even necessarily be bad information, but it just might not apply to you. Like, we'll say if someone is recommending making all of the baby food from scratch, well, that's great if you have the time for it. Not everyone does. So you definitely have to weed through and make sure that you are receiving content and trying to follow through with content that is from a trusted source. And that's, reliable, I guess you could say. But jumping into the next interview topic, which was answered by Grace. She is content creator for That Joy-Filled Home, and she focuses a lot on gardening and homemaking and homesteading. So she was asked about the relationship with your husband, and she said, "Children are life-changing in the best way possible. When a baby is born, it transforms a woman from maiden to mother, and quickly our lives are consumed with this new little bundle of joy, especially in the early years when all of their needs come from mom. However, it is easy for this to strain a marriage. The best advice is to always put your marriage above as a priority. The best advice is to always put your marriage as a priority above children. I know that seems counterintuitive, and I'm not saying neglect your children. I'm saying that your marriage will last far past when your children grow up and leave the nest. Your marriage is also the worldview you are giving your children of what marriage looks like. You can choose to give them a picture of covering offenses in love, being quick to forgive, loving each other when the other is being unlovable, or you can give them an image of bitterness, resentment, keeping score, and being contentious. The health of your marriage impacts future generations, and it needs to be tended to. Be intentional to make time for each other. Go on dates, listen intently to what the other is saying. Don't neglect the marriage bed, and set healthy boundaries. Remember, you are a team." And I feel like that is not talked about nearly enough. The fact that your marriage comes first, and it is, the church does agree with that. And I remember when my husband and I were taking the marriage pre-Cana classes, that was one of the things that was discussed, the fact that a marriage comes before your children. And it does seem counterintuitive, but when you think it through, it's like, okay, like you are setting the example on how to love for your children. And they're going to go and marry and replicate that marriage that you have. And Grace was right. Like, the marriage will outlast the time that you're raising your children. And unfortunately, if you don't put your marriage first, when your children grow up, you're almost going to be married to a stranger because time has passed and now you don't really know each other anymore. So with that in mind, for me, like I said earlier, preparing before even thinking about trying to conceive a child, now's the time to really strengthen that relationship with your husband and do it in a way where you're stronger together. You're a united front. And that way, when you do have children, your relationship will be solid, and continue to do that throughout raising a child. But that is all that we have today. I'm so happy that you were here to watch this through. If you have any other tips, young mothers out there or experienced mothers out there, leave them in the comments. I want this to be a community, so the ladies out there who are preparing for motherhood can have all of these inspiring comments below. But until next time, I will see you then. Bye.